Okay, this is a complicated video. Just imagine that you are creating a planet. And in the creation of the planet, you have to have everything stick to the planet, right? So if you want to have, say, dirt, water, everything like that, you have to have a reason for the dirt and the water to stick to the center of the planet. So remove the idea of planet from it and turn it into the idea of a ball, a rubber ball. And that the formulation of the rubber ball starts at the core of the ball. It can't start on the outside of the ball because it wouldn't have a center there. And that's the reason why the ball attracts to itself, because of the way that the core is centered and spun. Everything else is attracted to the core, not because of the way it shoots out from the core, but the way that it shoots around from the core. Now, the core would love to, in this rubber ball, shoot out like this anywhere it could, but it has to go through layers, and these layers within the system absorb the ball's energy. Now, imagine that you had a ball that you bounced on the ground. You made this ball, it looks like Earth, and you bounce it on the ground. And that bounce is something that echoes energy into the ball, correct? Because the bounce is in relationship to the way the ball versus the speed of the ball versus the reflection of the surface it hits, whether it has give or it doesn't. And then that creates the bounce back, how much it comes back to you from. However, the Earth as a ball is unable to bounce back because it's attracted to the sun and the sun's gravity and the pull of the sun to itself. And so while the Earth is taking a lot of hits, like dropping on the ground, it's unable to move or wobble from its position like you would see with a rubber ball. So if the Earth was as simple as a rubber ball constructed by a multi-dynamic layer that's spinning around itself, that holds itself together because of the center's balance, and the energy flow has to fly through it, not from it, what we see here right now with the Earth is magneto of the magnet, hydro, water, dynamics. The change of the way that the energy flow in the Earth is working based on the interaction of the magnetic frequency of the Earth, magnetic frequency, because magnets are more than just north and south. That's just too simple of a definition of magnetism, because magnetism goes back to ferrocity and the ability of Fe1, the ultimate iron that is ferrous and also flammable, which many people don't know that iron is actually flammable at its most distilled process. One of the major problems that we've created here on this planet is the ability for the Earth to release its energy in a dynamic way that allows it to shoot the energy out. Now, if you look at your planet and you think to yourself, wow, how did it have all those dinosaurs? What was so different about it? Why was it so warm? Why was it... Well, if you take a really good look at your geography and your archaeology, you can see that over millions and millions of years, the Earth has actually contracted, shrunk. And during the shrinking process, you had mountains that were formed and valleys that were created. But if the Earth were to get bigger again and heat up and then spin appropriately, which is a little bit slower than we are right now, then you would see those things come back together and the gap would be decreased. The gap would be decreased, and that would allow for the Earth to spin its appropriate energy off from itself, because the Earth heals itself. It's more than just a planet. It's not just a planetoid body of a non-existence. It's a creation that exists within itself and is a form of life within itself, if only to be understood as in life is created in order to survive. It has its own shell and encompassment, and it allows for us to have our biosphere, which it doesn't have to have. Other planets without the same similar biosphere do not contain water like we do. They do not contain an atmosphere. One of our biggest problems, however, is that we have a problem with emissions and the release of emissions through plastics. When we release plastics into the atmosphere, we forget that that smallest piece of plastic actually gets torn apart and shredded into millions and millions of subatomic particles. And those are all ethanols. And ethanols conduct energy, energy that is given to us photonically, cosmic radiation, and otherwise. The sun is a very, very powerful thing, and it provides life. However, if the crystalline sphere that we live within causes extra heating within the Earth itself, the process of the Earth will cause itself to release its energy through different methods than the North and the South Pole, because gravity doesn't have to have its own center of balance. It can use its own magnetism of gravity, magnetism, the attraction of itself, Fe1 minor. So you could see major things happen here. You could see huge storms coming in. I mean, Category 5 is just where you stopped at. It doesn't have to stop there. You could see something like Hurricane Michael come ashore and blow in 40 or 50 miles by 10 miles wide. Catastrophic. Because the energy flow from the Earth comes from the Earth and goes up and then meets. And where it meets, it correlates and then it follows itself. Okay, so the energy is constantly leaving the Earth, entering the atmosphere, going up, coming back down, and going in and out, like a wave, a real slow wave. But we've given those waveforms more power to them by allowing for hydrocarbons and ethanols to increase the movement of energy through our ocean floor and through our atmosphere. And the faster it can move, the faster it can radiate. And the faster it can radiate, the faster it can bounce. This has nothing to do with a cow farting. It just doesn't. And there's some very simple ways to fix this. Very simple ways to fix this. You can statically charge metal sheets and absorb it from the atmosphere, right? You can take those statically charged shields and get rid of them. The moon wouldn't care if you put statically charged shields on it from the planet. You've created it. You've extracted it from the Earth. You could start a huge recycling program and clean everything up. Seems like a lot of work for you guys. You guys are pretty lazy. Or you guys can just grin and bear it and try to fortify yourself as best as possible, which means that millions of people in India are going to die. Millions of people around the world are going to die. Australia is on what's called a convex verge. In my personal opinion, what happened in North Korea caused a huge hydrophobic event, and the North Pole is slowly moving towards North Korea, which means that the South Pole is stable, and that means that there'll be an overlapping Dutch line down there. And where those two lines meet from the North Pole and the South Pole, it'll drive a wedge right through Australia, which will cause them to have the most tremendous weather that you've ever seen. It'd be very sad for them. We often complain about the weather and how we wish we could be on the beach all the time, and we wish for this. But in a world that's created that is most perfect, the only thing you can wish for is to better yourselves. If you're in a fire-prone area, and you know you are, you could create drone-modified fire cisterns that hold water and fill up in a good time, and when the fire starts, the drone actually comes up and starts using its own pump system to fire water down to protect the area. And you can create better logging roads, and you can clean things up, and you can put people to work. You can do a lot of things in this society to save yourselves, or you can watch many of you be destroyed, and many of you will be destroyed if you don't work together. If you don't want to help out India, then you won't help out India. Then they'll die. They'll get limited amounts of water, they'll slowly perish, and they'll have to move from the places that they live. And when they move, they'll have to integrate, and other people won't want them there. Is it not better to keep them there and create safety for them than to allow the people that only think of themselves to be the safest people? It's just a cause and effect relationship. If you allow the energy to come into the earth and not be alleviated appropriately, then the earth will overheat. The earth is overheating, and you cannot stop it. You will not be able to stop this. this is not something you will change. God bless you. Work harder.